When people of a certain age, which would be me, think of camper vans, we tend to think of converted Volkswagens. That's because it's been going on for decades. Long before influencers started to clutter the place up and put hashtag van life on everything, people were taking combi commercial vehicles, putting a bed and a stove in them and seeing the world. And nothing's changed. Eventually, Volkswagen itself caught on and started producing factory camper vans. In fact, in Europe, there's still one built to this very day. But that's not this. This is different. This is a Volkswagen camper van with a K. Hashtag, I'll explain in a minute. Now, the reason Volkswagen doesn't just import the European camper van is because it's made predominantly for a left-hand drive market, which means the sliding door's on the wrong side. And the gas system, which powers the hot water system, yes, there's hot and cold running water, and the cooker, doesn't meet ADR standards. So it would have been a bit of a faff to get the thing to be engineered for Australia. So Volkswagen Australia did the smart thing. They picked up the phone and they called Melbourne-based caravan manufacturer Jayco. And this is the result. This is a joint venture, and I gotta tell you, it's way more glamping than it is camping. This is where the camper van gets complicated. So for the full story on what's what and where it lives, check out the written review at carsguide.com.au. Meantime, because it's both a car and a holiday house, the camper needs to include the requirements of both those things. So, Jayco started with a kitchen that is accessible from both inside and outside, featuring a 90-litre fridge freezer, a dual gas hob, and a sink with a mixer tap that's attached to a 120-litre freshwater tank. The bathroom has a shower and toilet with a cassette waste system. There's a wind-out awning for increased living space, and all windows open and are fitted with blinds and fly screens. The bedroom has swivelling fans, a TV on a swivel, and reverse cycle air conditioning. The electrical system is amazing too, with a 3000 watt inverter, a 400 amp lithium ion battery, a solar array, DC to DC charging, and an alternator that's beefy enough to charge things on the run. There is, according to VW, enough power storage to run the air conditioning for about 7 hours straight, even when you're completely off-grid. Okay, let's talk price. Now, this is a lot of hardware and it's a lot of vehicles, so it's not going to be cheap. It's, after all, a car and a house. And grey nomads over the years have proven themselves to fall into one of two categories. The first ones are the ones that eat 2-minute noodles and live from pension check to pension check. The second type are the ones that are spending the kids' inheritance. And I'm inclined to think, with a starting price of about $157,000, that this vehicle will appeal to the latter category. Jayco's experience building caravans is carried over into the layout of the VW camper van. But this is more than just bolting a caravan-less wheels to a van chassis, and there's a lot of evidence of clever thinking in terms of ventilation and, in particular, the electrical setup that allows for off-grid living for days at a time. We're also pretty impressed with the way the front seats swivel 180 degrees to form the dining room, and the fact that the bed is a queen size that doesn't have to be packed away each morning. Obviously, cramming so much functionality into a motor vehicle is never going to be easy, but compared with a tent or even a camper trailer that needs to be set up each night, the VW camper van offers a hassle-free experience which could be make or break stuff in the context of a months-long trip around the country. Without actually having lived in the camper van ourselves, the potential problems that really stand out might be the proximity of the bathroom to the kitchen and the fact that the bathroom itself creates a huge blind spot to the rear for the driver. However, the mirrors are great, neatly solving problem one, while experience has shown that a defined set of toilet rules can address concern number two. No pun intended. Meantime, the driving experience is that of any other crafter, including the clever cabin with its useful array of storage spaces, charging ports and cup holders, not to mention great connectivity. So, power in this vehicle is a 4-cylinder turbo diesel. It's 2 litres, but because it's got twin turbos, it makes 130 kilowatts of power and 410 newton metres of torque. It drives through an 8-speed automatic gearbox, so it's dead simple to drive, and it is all-wheel drive with a rear diff lock. So even if the campground floods, you should still be able to get out. Now, a lot of people are going to be intimidated, initially at least, by the sheer size of this thing. Yes, it's tall, so you have to worry about underground car parks or you're going to wipe out the air conditioning unit. and you do have to take into account the width of the thing, and it's long, it's nearly 7 meters long. But once you get your head around those dimensions, it starts to become actually quite good fun to drive. And part of that is because you're sitting up nice and high, and basically there's glass everywhere. It's like driving a 130 kilowatt bay window. It's actually good fun. I can see why people enjoy the high seating position of SUVs and four-wheel drives. It's the same sort of thing. Ride quality wise, it's actually very good. It is 3.5 tons in weight, this thing, so the suspension's been tuned for that, and they've done a really nice job. The steering also, it's one of Volkswagen's things I know to make their cars steer really nicely, but this thing does. It feels all of a piece. The engine is a little bit slow to take off. It can feel a little bit sluggish when you're initially trying to burst into a line of moving traffic, for instance. But once you're up and running, there's oodles of grunt on tap. There's 410 Newton meters. Let's be honest, that's quite a bit, even for something this big and heavy. And the gearbox, the 8-speed automatic, does a ripper job of bringing it all together and making sure that the engine's on song and always on the boil, and there's always performance to be had. Like I said, only that initial taking off where you're trying to beat someone into a line of traffic will you notice that it is a big heavy vehicle. The only other thing I can see is that there's a big blind spot, and that's formed by the bathroom. Basically, there's a big wide pillar in the rear window. You can't really see out the back very much, and the bathroom does get in the way. The mirrors, however, are very good, and you will learn to use them, and you will learn to trust them. The other thing I've noticed is that it's quite noisy in here on rough roads. There is a bit of rattling, but let's be honest, if you drove your apartment or house down a bumpy road at 100 kilometers an hour, I reckon the china cabinet would rattle as well. So, you know, you've got to take into account that there's a lot going on here. It is a car, it is a house, it is a holiday, and you'll live with the noise. But it's not too bad, and I just wonder though, when this vehicle gets a bit of age on it, what some of those fittings will be like once they've been down the Gibb River Road a few times or up the Birdsville track once or twice. And in fact, the all-terrain version of this would handle that no problem. With those tyres and the little bit extra ground clearance, it would be an admirable sort of companion for a trip like that. No, it's not an off-roader. Will it go up the Telegraph track to Cape York? No, it won't. But will it go up the Birdsville track? Absolutely. There's no official fuel consumption number for the camper van, but we recorded between 9 and 10 litres per 100 kilometres on a run using a mix of winding roads and highways. With the 75 litre tank, that should give an easy 700 kilometres between fill-ups, but don't forget the AdBlue, which will also need topping up periodically. VW's Crafter is one of the better commercial vehicles in terms of driver aids, with everything from blind spot monitoring and adaptive cruise control to rear cross traffic alert and autonomous emergency braking. It would be nice if the AEB worked at speeds above 60 kilometres an hour though, and the two rear seats don't have side airbags. They do, however, have child restraint top tethers. The camper van has not been crash tested, so there's no ANCAP star rating available. Because it's a factory sanctioned conversion, the camper van carries the full VW Australia 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. There's also 5 years of roadside assistance, and there will also be a cap price servicing plan to be announced. I guess any verdict on this vehicle has to include a comparison with a conventional four-wheel drive and caravan, because in a lot of ways that's a more sensible choice, because for the other 50 weeks of the year, your four-wheel drive can be your daily car. Whereas this, well, it's probably going to sit in the carport for 48 weeks of the year when you're not on holidays. And that's going to be an annoyance for some people. It's also going to be an impossibility for some people who just don't have that sort of space. That said, a caravan that's not being used also sits around, but at least it can be used for surly teenager accommodation, although I suppose this could too. The point being that for a lot of people, a conventional car and caravan is going to be a better solution, but it's not going to be as good as this to drive, and potentially a car and caravan or four-wheel driving caravan is going to cost more money than this, even though this isn't cheap. So you've got to weigh up whether you can do without this as a daily car, because it's not really suitable for daily driving. It's too big, it's too long, it's too wide. It doesn't fit in underground car parks, it doesn't fit in car spaces, it won't even fit in a lot of carports, so you've got to keep that in mind. So I guess it comes down to how seriously do you take your fun?